A young girl joins a demonic covenant in an effort to escape her unfortunate life, but it becomes rapidly apparent that that covenant is every bit as bad as the horrible life she had before, but now she just has more power. I discuss this and more on today's episode. Back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. Today I want to talk about some more manga, because I'm still on that manga grind, and I want to talk about a series that I've been exploring. Today's manga is all about people with giant swords and elf creatures. I am referring to Berserk Volume 15 by Kentaro Miura, which was published around 1997. For those who don't know, I've talked about Kentaro Miura on this channel before, so I don't need to go into that great of detail. But for those who don't know or something like that, he wrote the Berserk series as well as a couple of other mangas. He got it adapted into movies, as well as like TV shows and like video games and whatnot. And he was well regarded for his work, especially at the time of his death a couple of years ago. And I've been exploring the series, really been enjoying it. The Golden Age arc is possibly one of the best pieces of fiction ever, but I have been having a few problems with the Conviction arc that comes after, and I'm really hoping that it picks up, because it's just really hard to get into after reading such a compelling narrative in the Golden Age arc. But without further ado, let's talk about Volume 15. I will do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. So Volume 15 of Berserk picks up where Volume 14 left off. Guts has been fighting elf creatures who are kidnapping children and killing people of a small village, and he stumbles across an elf queen, who's also seemingly part of the demonic covenant that Griffith has joined, using his Bayolet. And the elf queen manages to leave after Guts confronts her, but one of the children that Guts is protecting, a young girl named Jill, reveals that she knows who the elf queen is. She talks about a young girl that she knew in the past named Rosine, who came from a troubled family. Her mother died and her father was abusive, and she wasn't having a great time in this war-torn landscape. And so she said she was going off to the Misty Valley in order to find herself. And it appears that Rosine has made a deal of some sort in the same caliber as what Griffith made, in an effort to find an escape. Eventually, Rosine manages to, the Elf Queen manages to stumble across Jill again and tries to recruit Jill. Jill is intrigued by the offer, but before she can make her choice, Guts shows up and he fights the forest guardians that are put before him, and he even tries to kill Rosine, which Jill is unhappy about. And the Elf Queen sort of flies off with Jill. Meanwhile, Puck is upset with what Guts is doing. He's becoming increasingly dark, and so Puck goes off to the Misty Valley and finds Jill. And the elf creatures there seem peaceful at first, but when Puck and Jill have a real look, it's revealed that these creatures are every bit as bad as humans, engaging in fighting and war, and are kind of bloodthirsty. And so Jill is a bit scared, and she even tries to tell Rosine this, but Rosine is like, you're either with me or you're against me. But before Rosine can do anything to Jill, Guts just bursts and sets everything ablaze and confronts Rosine in a way that terrifies Jill, and a big fight is going to ensue. However, that is where this volume ends, leaving a question of whether Guts is going to win, if he's going to save Jill. And that's where the story ends there. In terms of analysis, there's a fair bit to talk about with Volume 15. One of the main themes that Miura is talking about is that of the escape. Rosine wants to escape from her miserable life. She's had a bit of a rough go of things, and so she chooses to leave home to find that escape. And in doing so, it does seem like she kind of finds it, and that she's able to become this elf queen creature, who's part of this demonic covenant that Griffith has joined, or Griffith will one day join. I think the elf queen joined before Griffith, but being the elf queen allows Rosine to just frolic, to not have any worries about anything, and to potentially save others from the harm that she experienced, at least from her perspective. And she can do harm to people who are going to do harm, which is why she's targeting people of this village, the adults, because they're not treating the children very well. And ultimately, Rosine offers to save Jill in the same way that Rosine was saved, and in doing so, Jill will avoid war, this war-torn landscape. She'll avoid further pain. She'll avoid major harm. And it seems like a great way to escape. It seems like a great life to live. But then you remember that the elves seem to be just as bad as the humans. The elves are tearing each other apart, playing mock war and other such games, and causing actual harm to each other for no reason other than the fact that they seem to enjoy it. And so in that way, they're not much different from the humans. They've just targeted the humans in an effort to create a sense of justice that Rosine probably wants. But there's no actual justice happening, because Rosine was orphaned, and now she's orphaning other children if she doesn't outright kidnap them and force them to become these weird elf creatures. So there's lies here, but I don't think Rosine is fully aware of the extent of her lies. Much like Griffith, I think it's kind of buried down, and it's left to just sort of fester, and maybe one day she'll become more aware of it, but she doesn't seem to have an intent to become more aware of these sort of lies. And so it's interesting to compare Rosine to Griffith and why they chose their paths. Griffith had an ambitious desire that led him down the path that he took. Whereas Rosine doesn't seem to have the same ambition, but she just wanted a better life. And so the Baelit, the demonic covenant, those people, they offered her the choice to sort of find that sort of peace, to find that sort of comfort from the horrors of the world. But in doing so, it's kind of a trick, because now she's enacting more horrors on the world in the process. So it does provide an escape. There is a similarity between the two, but Rosine seems to be maybe more dangerous than Griffith, because Griffith is a known quantity, and Rosine is someone who maybe doesn't realize what she's doing because of the terror, the fear that she's experienced in the past. It's also important to talk about Guts' crazed behavior. He seems hell-bent on killing demons. For the past couple of volumes, he's made that abundantly clear that is his goal, and he doesn't really care who he hurts in the process. That's the big point, is he's making few considerations for who he harms. When he sees the elf queen and realizes he has an opportunity to take her life, he lunges at her with his sword, and the problem with that is that he's in the process, he's he could kill Jill. He could hurt her, but he doesn't seem to care, because in his eyes, Jill's in the way. Jill's a weakling who, if she dies, that just proves she didn't deserve to live in the first place. Again, Guts can't really feel for other people, because if he does, that'll just open his heart for further harm and further sadness. It sort of turns him into a crazed sort of monster man. You become what you're hunting. Jill is afraid of Guts when he attempts to rescue her at the end of the story, because he's just sort of surrounded by fire, slaughtering countless and countless elf creatures, which are really just children, and she doesn't know who is more scary here, the elf creature or Guts. I think this kind of gives way to the full extent of the betrayal. Guts is so lost, so hurt, so distant from his emotions because of Griffith's betrayal, that he's become sort of an unfeeling monster in the process. Again, like, you hunt those that you're hunting. You stare into the abyss, and the abyss looks back into you, and that's kind of indicative of how hurt Guts is, how distant he is from sort of like connecting with anyone. He can't really rely on Casca anymore. He can't really rely on a steady sort of safe environment, because now everywhere is filled with demons and various creatures that want him dead. And so, like, he has to become this monster in order to accomplish what he's hoping to accomplish. And that's really fascinating writing on Miura's part, how like, Guts can't be that nice, somewhat sensitive guy that existed in the Band of the Hawk, if that guy was ever truly a real person, or if he was just sort of deferring his reality until he left the Band of the Hawk. But despite this sort of interesting writing, I do think that Puck counters the serious emotions of this series, of this volume in particular, because you have Guts sort of laying out these heavy emotions, and then Puck, it just makes a couple jokes, or Puck's like, "You're a meanie man," and it's like, that kind of undermines the story. I think it makes everything feel a little less serious in that way. It also, like, I think if Puck had existed in the Golden Age arc, it would have kind of derailed a lot of the story, and I can understand why, like, the TV show from the 90s kind of got rid of Puck altogether. It's just because it doesn't feel like it fits, and it's there. I understand why it's there, is to make it so this isn't overly dark, but in the process you kind of undermine the story that you're trying to tell at the same time. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Berserk Volume 15. It's a fun volume, but again, it does have some problems with sort of advancing the story that I want to see, and it's going to take a while to get to the point where Guts finally gets to confront Griffith again. But even more so than that is the tonal shifts that I'm not a big fan of. I think that's probably one of the few problems that I actually have with the Berserk series, because everything else is really good, from the art to the story to Guts as a character. So I still recommend that you read this, that you get into this series if you haven't done so already, because there's quite a bit worth discovering here. Anyways, if you have any comments, let me know below. If you want to just say something about this particular volume, I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this story or this author if they don't already know. Although I do urge you to kind of check out Volume 1 before you make it to Volume 15. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and elf fighting travels. Farewell.